Hello everyone, welcome back. These three people here are three very cool people because all of them helped to discover some ancient forgotten language. This guy was called Bedrich and he helped to decipher the Hittite language. I have a video about that in case you want to check it out. This is Alice Cover and she helped to decipher Linear B, an old kind of Greek language. And this is Jean Champollion and he helped to decipher the Egyptian language. Have you heard of the Rosetta Stone? This guy used the Rosetta Stone to decipher the Egyptian language. And I have read of these three people, I have read how they decipher these languages, and I find their stories very, very, very cool. And sometimes I've wished that I was able to take some old language and decipher how it works. But turns out that we have a chance to do something like that, but with a constructed language. Because you see, there is this company called, it's Wizards of the Coast, and they make a game called Magic the Gathering. And Magic the Gathering has a lot of universes and a lot of worlds. And in one of those worlds, you have the Phyrexians. And the Phyrexians are these creatures which are super evil. They are kind of like robots or machines. And it's a long story. I'm not going to get into the lore. But the point is that these creatures, the Phyrexians, have their own language called Phyrexian. And Wizards of the Coast has explained that this is a real language. This is a real conlang. But here's the thing. Many companies, many media companies have created languages for their TV shows or something like that. You have, for example, Dothraki for Game of Thrones, Na'vi for Avatar, Klingon for Star Trek, the list goes on. There are many conlangs in fiction. But the thing that makes Phyrexian different is that we don't know how Phyrexian works. For all of those other languages, for Klingon, Na'vi, Dothraki, the people that made those languages will explain how they work, and you can learn them if you want to. But with Phyrexian, I think that purposefully, Wizards of the Coast has been very secretive about how Phyrexian works. And I think that is part as a marketing strategy, because look, they can print these cards, and they are written in the language of the Phyrexian, and I mean, we know what they mean, because there are also versions in English and in other languages, so you can actually know what they do. But the fact that they are written in the language of these people, it's so flavorful, it's so cool, it's very immersive in terms of world building and stuff. And the fact that you don't know what it means, that it is mysterious, and it motivates people to try to, figure it out, which is what we are going to try to do. And it is like one of those, those games that are like games that are played in the real world, where there are clues hidden everywhere and stuff like that. I feel maybe Wizards of the Coast did not expect that people would try to decipher Phyrexian as a kind of game, but maybe they didn't expect that there were people as nerdy as us. So what we are going to do in these videos is that we are going to start deciphering little by little the Phyrexian language. I have already deciphered a few things about the grammar that I have not seen anyone else mention in the internet, but in this video we are going to focus only on the phonology for now. In the next video we're going to talk about the grammar. Also, I should mention that there are a lot more of examples of Phyrexian in comics, promotional videos, promotional art, and other kinds of stuff. And so I went through many examples of Phyrexian, and I started looking for all the examples we knew of proper names. For example, like in these cards, we have, this one is Elesh Norn, and this is Vorinclex. So we know that the name Elesh Norn should be somewhere in this card. Same with Vorinclex. We know that the word Vorinclex has to be somewhere in this card. And also, you might have noticed that the text in these cards is horizontal, and the text that I have here is vertical. But that's because it seems that in all native examples of Phyrexian, it is written top to bottom and left to right, but apparently they rotated 90 degrees for the cards because they are designed for horizontal text. But anyway, I'm gonna look at this text and I'm gonna use the strategies that I learned from all the cool people at the beginning, and we're gonna look for patterns, and we are gonna start deciphering the Phyrexian language. So let's begin with Vorinclex. And the first thing we notice, actually in all of these names, not just in Vorinclex, is that we have two kinds of symbols. We have symbols that are very angular, some of them cross the line or something like that. But then we have these symbols which are made of three elements. For example, we have this thing here and this thing here, and the three elements are different every time, and they are on different sides of the line. For example, in Vorinclex, we have this symbol to the left and in Sheoldred we have this symbol to the right. In Eleshnorn, again, we see it to the left, but they are always made of 3 elements. And so the fact that we seem to have 2 kinds of symbols makes me think that they are meant to represent 2 kinds of sounds, like vowels and consonants. And I know that this is language spoken by these kind of like robot machines or whatever, but this was a language that was made in the real world by humans. And come to think about it, like the creator of these machines, Jagmoth, was a human, so maybe he was able to speak Phyrexian. So, like, we know that this is probably some combination of consonants and vowels. It seems like a good guess. And that means, and we also notice in these examples and in all examples of Phyrexian text, that it always starts with this horizontal line, and it always starts with this slash here at the end. And so those are not symbols. They are just marking the beginning and the ending of whatever you are writing. Okay, so let's start with Borinclex here. We have this first symbol, which probably refers to the first sound in Borinclex. And here we have to be careful not to confuse the letters we use to write a word with the sounds of a word. Because it turns out that they are quite different things, especially in English. I mean, there are languages like Spanish, Italian, or Korean where they have much better orthography, but I'm getting off topic. The point is that there is this way to write the sounds of a language, of any language, and it's called the International Phonetic Alphabet. And if I write it with the International Phonetic Alphabet, Borinclex is something like this. Borinclex. I'm running out of space. Well, here a K and an S go at the beginning there. Borinclex. And so what I'm thinking about when I mention the sounds and stuff is going to be the international. I'm going to be talking about the International Phonetic Alphabet and nothing else, right? Just to be in the same page. And so let's see. For example, we have this symbol here. Probably refers to the first sound in Borinclex. And so let's start writing all of our guesses. And then we are going to see if they hold up. I think that this symbol refers to this, and this is called the labiodental voiced fricative. That is like the linguistic terminology for that sound. And then we have this symbol here, and these kinds of symbols that we are theorized refer to vowels. Maybe that's the O in Borinclex. Okay, that would make sense. And so we write it here. This is another guess for another one of the sounds. And then probably this refers to this alveolar tap, this R sound in Borinclex. Let's write it here. And then, but then we have a problem, because there aren't, if these symbols are really the symbols for vowels, there aren't any more in the rest of the word Borinclex. But we know that there are at least 2 more vowel sounds. So, I forgot to write, this is for an R sound. So what's going on? Well, maybe in Phyrexian they do not write all the vowels. Maybe they just write some of the vowels. Maybe like an abugida, or maybe all of these diacritics are encoding some vowels somehow. So maybe all of these other symbols left in the word Borinclex are encoding just consonant sounds. Okay, so then this symbol here would be an N, or alveolar nasal, as it's called in linguistics. Okay, so yeah, maybe. Let's try to keep it. These are like, you have to make guesses, and then you have to start seeing if your guesses hold as you see more examples. That's how linguists decipher these languages. So this is we think that this is an N. Maybe this is like a K sound. Let's see. We are just gonna, I made it wrong. The line goes the other way. You have to be careful because you don't know what details are important for this language. And so we're gonna get to that later when we see all of these different diacritics. So anyway, so this is probably like a K sound or an alveolar unvoiced stop. Then this would be like an L. Or an alveolar, a lateral approximant, I think is the the official terminology, and then we have a problem because we know that boarding clicks ends with a cluster of two consonants and a K sound and an S sound. Voiced alveolar stop and an unvoiced what's the word? An S sound. I forget the terminology. But anyway, but we have only one symbol left. So yeah, maybe what happened is that the creators of the language were like, well, maybe in English we use one symbol to represent K, the symbols KS. We have one symbol for two sounds. So maybe Phyrexian does the same, which would be kind of boring because, but I mean, they already did so many things different from English. I just hope, like my hope is that Phyrexian is not just English but written in a weird way. But I mean, but even if that's the case, discovering that is gonna be rewarding. But yeah, I'm guessing that this one symbol refers to these two sounds. But then when we go to Urabrask, we have a little bit of a problem because Urabrask starts with a vowel, but the vowel symbol in Urabrask is the second one, and then we have another symbol here. Unless Urabrask doesn't really start with a vowel at all. Have you ever heard of the glottal stop? And the glottal stop is that thing you say when you say words like oh. You're not saying oh, you're saying oh. And that thing between the O's is actually a consonant in some languages. For example, in Hawaiian, that's the difference between, like, you have these three words, ia, ia, and then I think another one is ia. So for example, I know that this one means he or she, ia, ia, ia. And one of these means fruit and the other one means fish. But as you can see, and you can you hear the difference? Ia, ia, ia. And well, anyway, the point is that this glottal stop is a consonant and is very important in some languages. So it's not that crazy that it is a consonant in Phyrexian. And the symbol for the glottal stop is kind of weird. Looks like an interrogation symbol. So yeah, and maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe this thing here is just the symbol for the glottal stop. Okay, no, actually, I wrote it incorrectly. It's more like that, doesn't have a point at the bottom. Anyway, okay, and then maybe this is like a U, or maybe his name is pronounced Urabrask. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that this is a vowel sound, or I'm pretty confident that this is some kind of vowel. And then we have, oh look, we had the hypothesis that this symbol was an R sound, and then we see it just where we expected to find the R sound in Urabrask. So our guesses are paying off. And then there is no symbol for the A vowel in Urabrask, but that makes sense because we already have a hypothesis that Phyrexian doesn't write all the vowels. And then we have this other symbol here, which I don't have much space to write, so let me just move this thing down here. And then, okay, so then maybe this symbol here means it's what we would call a voiced bilabial stop, B. The name of the sound tells you how to do it. Like a voiced means that your vocal cords are sounding, bilabial, that you do it with your lips, and a stop is that, well, you stop the air, B. Anyway, and then another R, just where we are expecting to find it, and then another vowel symbol, this time for the elusive A, that we didn't see the other time. So it's weird that they write them sometimes, but not all the times. And so we have to be mindful of that to try to find what's the pattern there. Why only sometimes? And then another, this symbol that is not an, at first it looks like the R symbol, but look, the diacritic is below and is upside down. And apparently that could be an S sound, but maybe. Something like that. An S, and then we have this thing for like a K, but this is different from the other symbol we suspected was for a K in boarding clicks. So, what could be going on? At this point, we have to admit that we don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure, but doesn't matter. We have to these are just guesses. We just have to keep in mind that they are imperfect, and that's what happens all the time. So we are gonna write also that maybe this symbol here also means K somehow. I mean, it would be crazy. English has different. Many languages have more than one symbol for the same sound. Or, come to think of it, maybe this is an aspirated K because it is at the end of the word. Aspiration is a feature that English has, but it's not phonemic. That means that while English speakers use it, it doesn't really makes words different. I don't want to get too much into that, but the point is that that's the difference between saying K and K, like with an extra air. That might seem like a very small difference, but in some languages, it is a very important difference. And maybe that's what's happening here. So this is a hypothesis. We are just guessing here. But then let's move on to Sheldred. Let's see. With Sheldred, we have first this symbol, which seems like a consonant. It probably is what linguists call an on-voice palatal fricative. And they write it with this symbol in the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. And then we have, interesting, because Sheldred has a diphthong of two consonants. Sorry, it has a diphthong of two vowels. But we only have here one vowel symbol. But maybe what happens is that Phyrexian has special symbols for the vowels and the diphthongs. That would be interesting. Actually, if I remember correctly, Korean does something similar to that. So yeah, maybe that's what's going on here. I don't know. Then we have this symbol. We have already theorized that it was a symbol for the L. So that's great. And then for the L, and then this symbol has to be for the D in Sheldred. Let's write it. It is this line, and then the diacritic here. This is the alveolar voiced stop. And then we have the symbol for the R. We have already established this is pretty definitely the symbol for the R. And then the symbol for the D again, which makes sense if in Sheldred you are not writing this E in the middle. Nice. It's all our guesses are paying off, and all of our guesses are being corroborated. And let's move on to the last one, Elish Norn. Interesting. So in Elish Norn is another word that seems to start with a vowel, but could be starting with a glottal stop, which English users, like English speakers, use it, but they don't write it. Like, for example, pretty much every time you say a word in English that starts with a vowel, like apple, you are starting with that glottal stop. Anyway, but if this is a symbol for a glottal stop, it looks slightly different from what we had in Urabrask. Then again, let me show you like the source. The source is this. It's not very legible. It's very hard to make out. So, sorry. So maybe that this thing in Urabrask was meant to be the same thing as in Elish Norn, except that when we see it, and you can look up the card in Elish Norn, this stick here is pretty definitely touching this horizontal line, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on in there, but I don't know. It's one of those things that you have to be like, it almost fits, but it doesn't quite, and you just have to move on. So we are gonna guess that maybe this symbol is for a glottal stop as well, maybe. Anyway, and then we have this symbol that seems to be the E in Elish Norn. And remember, it's not the E, it's not the letter E, it's because in English the letters and the sounds are very different things. It's the E in Elish Norn, and then we have the L sound, and then look, it's the from Sheldred, but it's slightly different. Like this diacritic is different, just by a little bit. Maybe because this LH is at the end of the word. Let's. I'm not sure. Oh, also, by the way, you might look at this symbol here and be worried, but seeing at other Phyrexian examples, I have become convinced that this just marks the end of words. Apparently, in Phyrexian, they don't use spaces between words. They just mark the end of a word with this thing here. But we are gonna look more into that when in the next episode when we start talking about grammar. But anyway, so let's see. This is the symbol for the N, that we had already seen before in Borinclex. So that's great. And then the O that we had already seen from Borinclex, and the R that we had already seen in all of the other ones, and then the N again. Oh, so that's great. It seems that, I mean, there are a few weird things like this different K sound and this different in the in LH and Shieldred, but mostly our guesses seem to be holding up. And we also have a couple more examples of names to go through. So let me hide these ones. And okay, we have here, this is Jogmoth. This is the name of the creator of the Phyrexians. He was very evil and stuff. And let's see at his name. So apparently, it seems that, oh well, I forgot to write that this we think might be another symbol for the glottal stop. Anyway, so Jagmoth, I think that his name probably starts with what we call a semi-vowel, or in some languages it's a consonant. It's a whole thing. I don't want to get too much into linguistics here, but the point is that I think that this is a palatal approximant, which is represented with a J in the International Phonetic Alphabet. And then we have another vowel. And if I run out of space for vowels here, don't worry, we'll figure something out. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Anyway, so this is probably for an A, except that we already have a symbol for an A. And what happens here is that English, okay, in English you only have letters, you only have 5 letters for writing vowels, but you have a lot more than 5 vowels, which is different from Spanish, which has only 5 vowels, and we only write 5 vowels. Anyway, the point is that I don't know how many vowels Phyrexian has, so how many vowel sounds, and so I don't know. Vowels are my weak spot with linguistics, because I can never tell them apart. It's just like, for me, everything is I-O. Anyway, the point is that, but we know this is a vowel. And probably Jagmoth, this is probably like a voiced velar fricative. Let's write that. Let me move this whole thing down to make more space. I think that, yeah, maybe this is a voiced bilabial, a voiced velar stop, which would be similar to what we saw with LH Norn, but maybe like the little stick here is higher in LH Norn. Maybe that matters. We don't know. And then we have the symbol probably for the M in Jagmoth. And then we have this thing here, and I don't know, maybe this is part of the M symbol, maybe it is its own symbol, because for example with the N, with the symbol for the letter N, that line is part of it, so maybe it's part of it as well here. I'm not sure, but anyway, we just have to keep a mental note of that. But then we have the O. This symbol has already been pretty definitely established to be an O sound. And then maybe... And then we have a problem, because this symbol here looks very similar to this symbol here. I mean, we will visit that again in the next video when we see some examples, for example, of Jagmoth's Testament and other stuff. But maybe this symbol here also means TH, which again wouldn't be so crazy. Many languages use one symbol to represent more than one sound in different situations, so maybe I'm pronouncing Jagmoth incorrectly in the first place. And then we have another vowel sound, another vowel symbol that we had not seen before, or haven't we? Actually, come to think of it, it looks very similar to the U in Urabrask. And by the way, we had already finished with Jagmoth. This maybe, Okay, let me tell you what I think is going on here. I think that the name Jagmoth stops around this point, right? And then, but the text, and well, this is gonna be important in the example we're gonna see in the next video. But then you have this thing at the end of the name of Jagmoth, and it is talking about something of Jagmoth. And so I think that maybe this thing here, that I think it sounds ook. I think that's the pronunciation. Maybe it is like a genitive. Maybe maybe in Phyrexian you change the end of a word to mean that that thing owns something else, and that's quite common. Latin did something similar. It was called the genitive. And I just want to look at this symbol here. It doesn't look like what we think is the aspirated K, but it does look like, what is the normal K? No, but it doesn't. What is the normal K? It looks somewhat to what we theorize was the normal K, except that the slash of the diacritic goes in the other direction. But I'm not sure if that's just like a matter of style or if that actually matters. So I don't know. But anyway, is that's a sneak peek on the about the grammar episode that is coming next. And let me just erase this, because we are looking at another proper name. This the name of Mirrodin, and Mirrodin is the world that the Phyrexians destroyed and turned into New Phyrexia. But anyway, we have this symbol here that looks like an. I mean, if the name is Mirrodin, this has to be an M. But we already have a symbol for M from the name of Jagmoth, and they are similar. You can see that they have some similarity, but they are not exactly the same. Like the diagonal goes in the other direction, so who knows what's going on here? Who knows? And let me erase this thing as well, just to make more space to for all of our guesses. And then we have this symbol here, which we had already discovered was the symbol for the E sound. But we know that Mirrodin is Mirrodin, so what's going on? Well, what happens is that in some languages, they classify sounds differently. Like, for example, if you're an English speaker, for you there is no difference between an aspirated K and a normal K. It's Ka and Ka. Like for you there's no difference between car and car. Probably you think I'm saying just the same word twice. Car, car. But an Indian speaker would hear those as completely different words. And the opposite happens. Sometimes people pronounce words with different sounds. The point is that maybe in Phyrexian, E and E are just the same sound for them. They hear it as the same thing. So if you say Mirrodin or Merodin, they wouldn't really consider that too much of a difference, and then they would kill you and turn you into a machine to make you perfect, and probably or sacrifice you to Jagmoth or whatever they do. But the point is that maybe this also has an E sound. And then we have this thing here, which keeps appearing again, and I don't know what this horizontal line is doing here. What was it doing in the name of Jagmoth? What is it doing in the name of Mirrodin? I don't know. Anyway, but then we have this R sound and the O sound, the D sound that we had already seen from Sheldred, and then the N sound. So that's great. So with the exception of this then symbol here, that's pretty good. And then we have one last name. Okay, this is the name of Phyrexia, the world where all the Phyrexians come from in the story. And so let's see what we learn from it. We have a symbol for the F sound, the labiodental unvoiced fricative, as linguists call it, and seems quite complex because it has two diacritics instead of just one, which is interesting. It could also be a bilabial unvoiced fricative, which is written like this in the IPA, I think, and this is actually. The Greeks would actually, that's the sound they have. And all the words in English that start with PH is because in ancient Greek they were pronounced with that sound. So the difference would be like fun and fun. Okay, maybe for you it sounded the same, but I swear to you that I made the sounds different. And if you don't hear the difference, that's because, well, your language doesn't train you. The languages we speak trains us to differentiate different sounds. But anyway, the point is that we have an F. Maybe this is like this thing here, probably is like a diphthong. Remember our hypothesis that maybe in Phyrexian diphthongs have their own symbols. So this would be the phi in Phyrexia. The I, and then let's see what else. The R, which we already are pretty confident what the symbol is. And then these things here. And here I drew some little stars because that's what they appear to be. Like they appear to be tiny little stars. I don't know if that's decoration or if that matters. But let's compare that to what we know for the symbol for KS. And the slash is going in the right direction, and there is a diacritic in the right positions, but the diacritics seem to be very different. And then it could be also a diacritic just for K, but then it doesn't match what we have guessed for the diacritic for S. So yeah, we are not entirely sure what's going on with these two symbols in the world of Phyrexian. But that's fine, we don't expect to have all the answers at this stage. But look at it, I mean, we have pretty good guesses for a lot of sounds in the Phyrexian language. So that's pretty good, that's a good development. And in fact, it is so good that, let me tell you, one of these guys that I told you at the beginning, Jean-François Chapollon, what he did when he managed to decipher the Egyptian hieroglyphics, when he figured out that they were meant to represent sounds and which sounds they were meant to represent, he was able to write his name using ancient hieroglyphics. And that's pretty cool. He was probably the first person to write their name using that writing system in thousands of years. And in following with that tradition, I'm gonna write my name in Phyrexian. And that's very easy because my name is really short, and it just so happens that all the sounds in my name are sounds that we were already pretty sure in the Phyrexian language. So here it is, Fer. We have the F, the E, and the R. Although probably a Phyrexian maybe would read it and say Fir, because remember that maybe for Phyrexians they consider E and E to be the same sound. So yeah, that's interesting. So anyway, if you are big enough of a nerd to enjoy this and you want to see more, please subscribe and give me a like, because in the next video we are going to start looking at the grammar of the Phyrexian language. And I think I have discovered a few things that no one else mentions in the internet, but if it just so happens that someone else that maybe you already had figured it out, well, congratulations. I mean, we are just having fun here. This is not a race, that's fine. And anyway, thanks for watching.